King Charles and Princess Anne are not just names in history books or people seen in royal ceremonies. They are brother and sister born into one of the most famous families in the world. People think they know everything about the royal family because they are always in the news or on TV. But the truth is, there is so much that happens behind closed doors. So much that the public never sees. And when it comes to King Charles and Princess Anne, there is a bond between them that runs deeper than most people realize. That bond holds memories, struggles, and secrets that have stayed hidden for years. Now something has changed. For the first time, both of them are speaking out. That alone makes people stop and pay attention. From the outside, their lives might look perfect. Palaces, crowns, titles, respect from millions. But the reality is very different. These are two people who have lived under pressure from the moment they were born. They were not given normal childhoods. Every move they made was watched. Every mistake they made was judged. Growing up, they saw their parents, Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip, dealing with royal duties, media pressure, and family issues. That left a mark on them. Especially on Charles and Anne, who were the oldest among the Queen's children. People often talk about King Charles, especially since he became king. They discuss his past, his marriage to Princess Diana, his love for Camilla, and his journey to the throne. But not many talk about how close he has always been to his sister Anne. Princess Anne is known for her strong will, her no-nonsense attitude, and her loyalty to the crown. But behind that serious face is a woman who has seen her family go through pain, drama, and deep loss. She has been the one to stay quiet, to stay strong, even when the world was falling apart around her. Now imagine these two, a king and a princess, coming together to speak about something they have never shared before. Why now? Why after so many years of silence? That is the question everyone is asking. And that's what makes this story so powerful. Something has happened, or maybe something has been happening for a long time, and they can no longer carry it alone. They are ready to talk, and the world is ready to listen. The curiosity grows because people wonder what kind of secret can be so important that even royalty would choose to hide it for so long. Is it something about their childhood? Is it something personal that affected their relationship? Or is it something bigger, something that could change the way we see the royal family? That's the hook. That's the reason people lean in. Because when two of the most private royals start opening up, you know it's not for attention. It's because the truth matters. There's something deeply human about seeing powerful people deal with pain, memory, and hidden truths. It reminds us that behind the crown, behind the titles, are real people. Charles and Anne have lived through decades of royal life. The good, the bad, and the painful. From the death of their parents to the family scandals, to the changing public opinion of the monarchy, they have carried a lot on their shoulders. And perhaps the weight of that is what finally made them speak. Not for the press, not for politics, but for themselves. What makes this moment even more intense is that Charles is now the king. Every word he speaks carries more power and more risk. Princess Anne, known for her loyalty to her brother, standing beside him in this moment, only adds to the gravity. They're not just telling a story, they are sharing a piece of history that has been kept in the shadows. People feel drawn to this because it doesn't feel like a press statement or a media stunt. It feels real. It feels like something that has been waiting to come out for years. And the fact that these two have chosen to do it together makes it even more emotional. There's a deep sense of respect and connection between Charles and Anne, and that shows in the way they support each other during this moment. This part of the story isn't about what the secret is yet. It's about who is telling it. And when the people speaking are the King of England and his only sister, it means something. It makes you pause. It makes you want to know more. Not just about the secret, but about the lives they lived that led up to this moment. What did they see as children? What did they protect as adults? And why now, after decades, have they decided it can no longer stay hidden? The answers are coming. But before the truth is revealed, the focus is on them. The brother and sister who have walked through life carrying something too heavy for words. And finally, they are ready to put it into words. That alone makes this story more than just royal news. It makes it something powerful, something personal, and something unforgettable. For a long time, King Charles and Princess Anne said nothing. They lived their lives in public, smiled at cameras, stood on palace balconies, and played their roles as expected. But behind those royal smiles and calm faces, something was kept quiet. Something real. Something heavy. And now, after years of silence, they have finally spoken. That moment when silence breaks is not just important. It is powerful. Because when people who are trained to say nothing finally decide to speak, the world listens. Why did they stay quiet for so long? That's what everyone is asking. Was it fear? Was it duty? Was it something they were protecting? In royal life, silence is not just normal, it's expected. Royals are taught from a young age to keep their emotions hidden, to never explain, and to carry on no matter what. Charles and Anne grew up with this rule. They watched their parents follow it. They followed it too. But now they have broken it. That is not a small thing. Imagine holding something inside you for decades. A memory, a truth, a pain. And every time you think of sharing it, you remember your title. You remember your duty. You remember the family you must protect. And so you stay quiet. Again and again. That's what they did. Until now. And that change, that decision to finally speak, tells us how serious this is. It tells us that whatever they were hiding is not something small. It matters. It matters enough to risk breaking a royal tradition of silence. This is not the kind of silence people break over simple stories. No, this is the kind of silence that covers deep emotions. Maybe regret. Maybe guilt. Maybe loss. Or maybe all three. The kind of silence that keeps people awake at night. That changes the way they look at the world. The kind of silence that grows heavier with time, until you can no longer carry it. That is the silence Charles and Anne are breaking. When they finally spoke, they didn't need to shout. Their voices were calm, but their words carried weight. There was something honest in their tone. Something tired. Something that said, "We've carried this long enough." The public saw it in their eyes. A softness. A sadness. But also a kind of relief, like people who had been holding their breath for too long and finally let it out. People who watched were surprised. Some were even shocked, because for so long, Charles and Anne were seen as strong, steady figures, always in control, always composed. And suddenly they were opening up, showing something rare. Vulnerability. That's what made this moment feel real. It was not about drama. It was about truth. The kind of truth that doesn't need to be shouted to be heard. There's something deeply human about breaking silence. It's a moment that many people can relate to. Everyone has kept a secret. Everyone has stayed quiet at some point to protect someone or something. And everyone knows the moment when silence starts to feel like a prison. That's the moment Charles and Anne reached. And when they broke their silence, they didn't just set themselves free. They invited the world to listen, to feel, to understand. But what was the cost of that silence? That's the other question people are asking. How did it affect them? Did it change their relationships? Did it shape their decisions? Did it create distance between them and others in the royal family? We don't know all the answers yet. But the fact that they stayed quiet for so long suggests that the secret touched many parts of their lives. It wasn't something that could be spoken without serious thought. The silence also makes the truth more powerful, because now people know this isn't just another royal headline. This is something that truly mattered to them. Something they protected for years. And that kind of protection only happens when something is personal, emotional, or even painful. That's why the public is listening so closely, because when someone like King Charles, someone who has been in the spotlight his whole life, chooses to share something private, it means everything. Princess Anne breaking her silence adds another layer. She is known for being quiet, strong, and private. She does her work, avoids drama, and rarely speaks to the media. So for her to come forward now, means the story is not just Charles, it's hers too. Something they went through together. Something they both felt was finally time to share. And that shared decision makes the moment more powerful. The silence they broke is also making people ask what else we don't know. What other things have been kept quiet inside the palace walls? What other truths are waiting to come out? Because if these two who have always followed the royal rules are now speaking, then anything is possible. It opens the door to more questions, more curiosity, more need for answers. But maybe the most important thing is what breaking this silence will do for them. Sometimes when you hold something inside for too long, it begins to control you. It becomes part of your identity. Letting it out, even just speaking it, can bring healing, peace. And maybe that's what they were finally ready for. Not headlines. Not attention. Just peace. This is not just about what they said. It's about the moment they chose to say it. The years they stayed quiet. The feelings they carried alone. And the courage it took to finally speak. That is what makes this part of the story unforgettable. The silence wasn't just empty space. It was filled with meaning. And now that meaning is being shared with the world. One quiet, powerful word at a time. For years, people have wondered what secrets the royal family might be hiding. What stories are kept behind palace walls away from the eyes of the public. The royal family is no stranger to gossip, rumors, and speculation. But the thing that people often forget is that secrets don't just stay hidden. They stay heavy, they stay with you. And for King Charles and Princess Anne, this is not just a matter of family drama or media attention. This is something real, something that has weighed on them for decades. And the fact that they are finally ready to share it speaks volumes about the depth of this secret. This is no small thing. Imagine holding on to a secret so big that it becomes part of who you are. It becomes something you think about every day, even if you try not to. It's a weight that affects how you act, how you live, and how you make decisions. The longer you keep it, the harder it becomes to let go. And yet Charles and Anne have carried this secret for so long. They have lived their entire lives with it in the background, hidden away, not because they wanted to, but because it was necessary. There was no other choice. The pressures of being members of the royal family, with all the expectations and responsibilities that come with it, meant they had to protect this secret, not just for themselves, but for the family as a whole. What could this secret be? That's the question everyone is asking now. What could be so important, so painful, that it has kept them silent for years? It's a question that lingers in the minds of everyone watching. Because when someone as powerful as King Charles and as respected as Princess Anne choose to keep something hidden for so long, it has to be something huge. It's not just a small family issue. It's something that changes the way we see them, the way we see the monarchy, and perhaps even the way we see ourselves. Because when royals keep secrets, they do it for a reason, and that reason is never simple. There's a strange kind of power in secrets. When you know something that no one else does, it makes you feel different. It changes how you view the world. For Charles and Anne, carrying this secret for so many years likely shaped their lives in ways we can't even imagine. They had to make choices based on this secret. They had to keep their emotions in check, even when they were hurting inside. This secret was a part of their everyday lives, and the weight of it would have affected them in ways that are only now beginning to surface. But secrets also have a way of getting out. They don't stay buried forever. Eventually the pressure becomes too much. Eventually someone has to speak. The fact that Charles and Anne have chosen to speak now suggests that this secret is no longer something they can keep inside. Maybe it's because they can't live with it any longer. Or maybe it's because the truth needs to be told. Whatever the reason, breaking the silence means they are ready to face whatever comes next. They have carried this weight for too long, and now they are ready to let it go. What makes this secret even more intriguing is the fact that they are doing this together. When King Charles and Princess Anne come forward with something like this, it's not just about them as individuals. It's about their relationship as brother and sister, and the bond they share. This secret is something that has affected both of them. They have both lived with it, and now they have both decided that it is time to reveal it. This is a moment that brings them closer. It's not just about the truth coming out, it's about them standing together, supporting each other as they finally speak about what has been hidden for so long. As the world waits for the details, there is a sense of curiosity that builds. What is this secret? What could it possibly be that has affected them so deeply? People are asking, speculating, and imagining all sorts of possibilities. Is it something related to their childhood? Something that happened in their family? Or is it something more personal, something that only Charles and Anne know about themselves? The possibilities are endless, and that is what makes this moment so captivating. It is the uncertainty, the not knowing, that makes everyone so eager to learn the truth. But there is also a sense of sadness that comes with the weight of a secret. Secrets are not easy to carry, they hurt, they create distance, and they leave scars. Charles and Anne have lived with this secret for years, and while the public may never know exactly how it has affected them, we can only imagine the emotional toll it has taken. There is no way to hide the fact that secrets change people. They shape their thoughts, their actions, and their relationships. And for the royal family, a secret is not just a personal matter. It is a matter of duty, of reputation, and of responsibility. Every decision made is influenced by that secret. Every move is calculated, and every action is measured. It's a life lived under the weight of something that can never be fully explained. But now, with this secret finally coming to light, there is a sense of relief that is hard to ignore. It's as if a burden is being lifted, not just from Charles and Anne, but from the royal family as a whole. For years the family has been under constant scrutiny. There have been scandals, rumors, and controversies that have rocked the monarchy. And yet through it all, Charles and Anne have remained steadfast. They have kept their heads down, done their duties, and stayed quiet about what they know. But the fact that they are speaking now shows that this is different. This secret is too important to stay hidden any longer. It has shaped their lives for far too long, and now it is time to share it with the world. The secret may be difficult to understand, but it is clear that it has had a deep impact on both of their lives. It has changed how they see the world, how they interact with others, and how they navigate their roles in the royal family. The weight of this secret has likely kept them up at night, wondering when the right time would come to speak. And now that time has arrived. The world is watching, waiting to hear what they have to say. The curiosity is growing, and the world's attention is fixed on them. What will they reveal, and what will it mean for the future of the royal family? There are moments in life when the weight of something unspoken becomes too much to carry. It's like a constant pressure, always there in the background, shaping every decision, every thought, and every action. For King Charles and Princess Anne, that weight has been there for years. It's a burden that's been hidden from the public eye, but it's never left them. And now, after all this time, they are finally ready to talk about it. The fact that they are willing to share this burden with the world tells us something powerful about them. It's not just about the secret anymore. It's about the emotional toll that this unspoken burden has taken on their lives. The idea of a burden is something everyone can relate to. We all have something, a memory, a decision, a mistake, that weighs heavily on us, and we all know how hard it is to carry that weight alone. But when you're in the royal family, that burden becomes even more complicated. You can't just talk about it, you can't share it with just anyone. Your every move is watched, your every word is scrutinized, and your personal life is not your own. That makes carrying a burden even harder. For Charles and Anne, this unspoken weight has shaped who they are. It's affected how they've lived their lives, how they've interacted with each other, and how they've dealt with the world. Imagine the pressure of always having to appear strong, always having to be the steady ones, the ones who never show weakness. The royal family is expected to be perfect. They are the symbols of power, stability, and tradition. But behind that perfect image, Charles and Anne have had to carry something that doesn't fit the royal image. It's a burden that in many ways goes against everything the monarchy stands for. It's something personal, something painful, and something that they could never share until now. This unspoken burden has shaped their relationship with the world, and even with each other. It's not just about a secret, it's about the emotional cost of holding on to that secret for so long. People often think of the royal family as a group of people who live in a world of luxury and privilege. They see the crowns, the palaces, the ceremonies, and think that their lives are perfect. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The royals are human, just like anyone else. They feel pain, loss, and disappointment. They have their own struggles and hardships, and for Charles and Anne, this unspoken burden has been one of those struggles. It's something that they've had to face together, and yet until now, they've never been able to share it with anyone else. The emotional toll of carrying such a burden, in silence for so many years, is hard to imagine. But it's clear that it has impacted their lives in ways that we may never fully understand. The fact that they are finally ready to speak out about this burden shows a huge shift in how they view their roles. They have spent their entire lives following the rules, keeping their emotions in check, and never letting the world see anything but what they were expected to show. But now they are stepping away from that. They are showing us a different side of themselves. They are allowing us to see the human side of the monarchy. And that's what makes this moment so powerful. It's not just about the secret they are sharing, it's about the emotional weight they've carried, the burden they've been forced to bear for so long, and the strength it takes to finally let it go. This unspoken burden is also a reminder of the pressure that the royal family is under. They are constantly in the public eye, every decision they make is analyzed. Every word they speak is turned into news. But for Charles and Anne, this burden was different. It wasn't something that could be explained away with a few words. It wasn't something they could simply ignore. It's a deep emotional struggle that has shaped who they are. And now they are finally letting the world in on it. They are finally ready to share the burden they've carried alone for so long. When you carry something that heavy, it's hard to know who you can trust. The royal family has always been cautious about what they share with the world. They are careful with their image and their reputation. But in this case, the burden was too much to keep hidden any longer. They couldn't continue to live in the shadow of this secret, and so they made the difficult decision to speak out. The decision to share this burden is not just a personal one, it's a statement. It's a message to the world that they are no longer going to hide who they are, or what they've been through. They are ready to let go of the weight that has been holding them down. This moment of release, of finally speaking out, is something that many people can understand. Everyone has carried a burden at some point in their lives. Everyone has had something that they couldn't share, something that they had to hide away, and for many people, the decision to finally speak about that burden is life-changing. It's freeing, it's like a weight lifted off the shoulders. But for Charles and Anne, it's even more significant. This isn't just about their personal lives, it's about their role in the world. It's about the monarchy and how it is seen by the public. It's about how they want to be remembered and how they want to shape the future. The decision to break the silence and reveal the burden they've been carrying is a powerful one. It's not just about telling a story, it's about showing vulnerability. It's about letting go of the perfect image and showing the world that they are human. This is something that has been hidden for so long, and now it's coming to light. And that's what makes it so intriguing. What could have been so important that they had to keep it a secret for all these years? And what will happen now that the truth is out in the open? These are the questions that everyone is asking, and the answers are sure to change the way we see the royal family forever. But there's something else that makes this moment even more significant. This burden they are sharing is not just a personal struggle. It's a reflection of the larger pressures they face as members of the royal family. They live in a world where their every move is watched, where their every word is analyzed, where there is no room for mistakes, and yet despite all of that, they have carried this burden in silence for years. The fact that they are finally speaking out is not just about personal freedom, it's about breaking free from the chains that have held them in place for so long. It's about taking control of their own narrative and finally being honest with the world. When King Charles and Princess Anne made the decision to speak out, it wasn't just a small act, it was a moment that would change everything. It wasn't just about sharing a secret or telling a story that had been hidden for years. It was about something much bigger. It was about breaking away from a tradition of silence. It was about confronting the past, and it was about showing the world something real, something human. For years they had been part of a system that demanded they keep their emotions in check, stay composed, and maintain the image of the perfect royal family. But in that moment they made a choice to let go of all of that, and with that choice came a wave of change. A wave that would have a lasting impact on them, their family, and the way the world saw them. The first thing to understand about their decision is that it wasn't an easy one. For most of their lives, Charles and Anne had been taught to keep quiet. They had learned that being a royal meant never showing weakness, never airing family secrets, and always being careful about what they shared with the public. This was the role they had accepted, the role they had lived by, but something had changed. The weight of the secret they had carried for so long became too heavy. The burden of silence became too much to bear, and so they decided to speak. In that moment they took control of their own story. And that decision, that very choice, had a powerful impact. The impact of their decision wasn't just felt by them, it was felt by everyone around them. The royal family as a whole had to adjust to the new reality that Charles and Anne had chosen to speak out. The image of the royal family, which had been carefully crafted over the years, was now being questioned. People who had always admired the family for its strength and dignity were now faced with a more human side of the monarchy. This was no longer just about crowns and palaces. This was about real people with real struggles, real emotions, and real secrets. And that was something the public wasn't used to seeing. It was a shift in the way the monarchy was perceived. And that shift had consequences. One of the most immediate impacts was on how the public viewed Charles and Anne. For years they had been seen as symbols of strength. People admired them for their ability to remain composed in difficult situations. But now, after breaking their silence, they were seen in a different light. People began to understand that they weren't just figures on a screen. They weren't just royals living in a world of luxury and privilege. They were human. And that made them more relatable, more real. It also made people wonder about what else they had kept hidden over the years. What other secrets were there? What else had they been carrying? And how had it shaped the people they had become? But the impact of their decision wasn't just about how they were seen. It was also about what it meant for the future of the royal family. The decision to speak out set a new precedent. It showed that even members of the royal family could be vulnerable. They didn't have to always be perfect. They didn't have to carry the weight of silence forever. And that in itself was a powerful message. It was a message to future generations of royals. A message that said it's okay to speak out. It's okay to be human. It's okay to confront the past and not keep everything hidden. And that could change how future royals approach their roles. It could change how they dealt with their emotions, and it could change how they connected with the public. For the monarchy as a whole, this shift had even bigger implications. The royal family had always been seen as a symbol of tradition and stability. They were the constant in a changing world. But now, with Charles and Anne choosing to speak out, the monarchy was being forced to evolve. The old rules of silence and secrecy were being questioned. The world was watching as the royal family stepped into a new era, an era where they were no longer untouchable figures on a pedestal. They were human beings, with flaws, fears, and emotions, just like everyone else. And that realization had a ripple effect. It made people think differently about the monarchy and what it represented. Of course, not everyone welcomed this change. Some people felt uncomfortable with the idea of royals opening up about their private lives. They worried that it would make the monarchy seem less dignified, less respectable. They feared that the royal family might lose its mystique, its power, and its influence. But there were others who saw it as a positive step forward. They saw it as a sign that the monarchy was evolving, adapting to a changing world. They appreciated the honesty and the courage it took for Charles and Anne to break their silence. And for them, this was a sign that the royal family was ready to connect with the public in a new way. A way that was more open, more honest, and more real. The impact of their decision wasn't just about the royal family. It was also about how it affected their personal lives. For Charles and Anne, speaking out was a way to free themselves from the emotional weight they had been carrying. It was a chance to finally let go of the past and move forward. But it wasn't without its challenges. Once the secret was out, there was no going back. There would be no more hiding. There would be no more pretending. And that could be a difficult thing to adjust to. They had spent so many years keeping this part of their lives hidden. And now that it was out in the open, they had to face the consequences. They had to deal with the fallout. They had to come to terms with the fact that their lives would never be the same again. But in many ways, speaking out also gave them a sense of freedom. They no longer had to carry the burden of secrecy. They no longer had to worry about keeping this part of their lives hidden. They could finally be themselves. And that in itself was a powerful thing. It was a sign that they were ready to embrace their truth, no matter how difficult it was. And that decision to embrace their truth would have a lasting impact on their lives, on their relationship with each other, and on their relationship with the public. The decision to speak out also had a wider impact. It changed the way people saw not just the royal family, but also the way they saw themselves. When someone in a position of power and influence chooses to break their silence, it sends a message to the world. It tells people that it's okay to speak up. It tells them that it's okay to confront the past. It tells them that it's okay to be vulnerable. And that's a message that resonates with people on a personal level. It encourages them to be more open, more honest, and more authentic. It reminds them that they are not alone in their struggles. And that in the end is the most powerful impact of all. When King Charles and Princess Anne made the bold decision to speak out about the long-held secret, they didn't just change their own lives. They changed the way people would view the royal family forever. It was more than just revealing a hidden truth. It was a shift in how the monarchy was seen. It was a move away from the perfect, untouchable image that the royal family had carefully crafted for generations. And it was a moment that made the public realize that the royals were no longer just distant figures sitting in palaces. They were real people with emotions, struggles, and stories of their own. For years, the royal family had been seen as an institution that stood for tradition, stability, and secrecy. But after Charles and Anne spoke out, everything changed. The change was immediate and noticeable. People who had once admired the monarchy for its strength and dignity started to look at it through a different lens. They saw Charles and Anne as people who had carried a burden for so long, and they began to understand that being a royal wasn't always about wealth and luxury. It was about duty, pressure, and sacrifice. This moment opened up a new conversation about what it meant to be a member of the royal family. It made people realize that even those in positions of power could feel the weight of life's challenges. But this shift didn't come without its challenges. The royal family had long been careful about protecting its image. Every public appearance, every speech, every interview had to be carefully planned. They were the face of an institution that was centuries old, and every action they took was scrutinized. But by breaking their silence, Charles and Anne made it clear that they were ready to embrace a new kind of royal family. One that wasn't afraid to show vulnerability. One that didn't hide behind a facade of perfection. It was a bold decision, and it would have lasting consequences. The public's reaction was a mix of surprise, curiosity, and admiration. People were intrigued by what Charles and Anne had kept hidden for so long. They wanted to know more. They wanted to understand what had been so important that it had to be kept secret for so many years. The curiosity was overwhelming, and it led to countless speculations and theories. Some people thought the secret was related to family matters that had been kept under wraps. Others believed it had to do with a major personal issue that Charles and Anne had been hiding from the world. No matter what the secret turned out to be, it was clear that this was a moment that would change how the royal family was perceived. The monarchy had always been seen as a symbol of tradition. It stood for stability, order and control, but now with Charles and Anne revealing a personal secret, the royal family was becoming something else. They were becoming more human. And that was a big change. People began to see them not just as rulers of a nation but as individuals with their own experiences, struggles and emotions. The royal family was no longer an untouchable institution. They were real people who faced challenges just like everyone else. This shift in perception had a deep impact. It made people rethink the role of the monarchy in modern society. One of the biggest questions that emerged after this revelation was how would this change affect the future of the royal family? The royals had always been expected to maintain a certain image. They had to be perfect. They had to be strong. They had to be above reproach. But now with the truth coming out, people started to wonder if that image was sustainable. Could the royal family continue to be seen as flawless symbols of power and dignity, or would they have to evolve to meet the demands of a changing world? Could they remain relevant in a society that was increasingly focused on transparency and authenticity? Charles and Anne had already begun to redefine what it meant to be a royal. They had shown that being vulnerable didn't make them any less strong. In fact, it made them more relatable. People started to see them as individuals who had faced difficult situations and made tough decisions. They began to admire their courage, and that admiration gave the royal family a new kind of connection to the public. It was no longer just about the titles, the crowns, and the ceremonies. It was about being real, being honest, and sharing parts of themselves that had always been kept behind closed doors. But even as the royal family began to transform, there were still many questions left unanswered. What else was there to learn about the royals? What other secrets had been kept hidden? And how would the rest of the family react to Charles and Anne breaking their silence? These questions added to the intrigue surrounding the royal family. People were now paying attention in ways they never had before. Every move, every word, every action was being scrutinized. The public wanted to know more. They wanted to understand the real story behind the monarchy. At the same time, Charles and Anne's decision to speak out marked a shift in the way the royal family would handle personal matters moving forward. For generations, royals had been trained to keep their personal lives private. They were expected to maintain an air of mystery and distance from the public. But now, with the world watching, it was clear that the rules were changing. The royal family was starting to show a more human side. They were becoming more accessible, more open, and more willing to connect with the public on a deeper level. This was a new chapter in the history of the monarchy. And it was one that would be watched closely by the world. In the years to come, this moment would be remembered as a turning point for the royal family. Charles and Anne's decision to speak out had far-reaching consequences. It had opened the door for other royals to be more open about their personal lives. It had shown that it was okay to be vulnerable, even in the spotlight. And it had changed the way people viewed the monarchy as a whole. No longer were they just figures of authority. They were real people just like anyone else, with their own stories, struggles, and triumphs. This transformation wasn't just about the royal family. It was a reflection of the changing times. In a world where people increasingly demand transparency and authenticity from public figures, the royal family was no longer exempt. They too had to adapt to the new reality. And with Charles and Anne leading the way, the monarchy was stepping into a new era. An era where vulnerability, honesty, and connection were valued more than perfection. And that made the royal family more relatable, more admired, and more in touch with the world around them.